All right, so this time we're talking about the EII, ethical intuitive introvert. This is the INFj Delta Quadra in Socionics. So this is an interesting type, one I know extremely well. So this is a type that is dominated by Fi. Okay, introverted feeling blocked together with extroverted intuition. So this is a type that's entire existence is really wrapped around people, their connection to people, but with a certain curiosity for people. They have a certain interest in learning about people. They tend to like unusual, creative types of people or just different people, non conventional types. The more unconventional is usually the better for them. Um, they themselves tend to be a little bit unusual, and they're often more motivated by very uh, probably the most gentle, noble, pure-hearted pursuits you can imagine. Uh, Again, they're interested in trying to do good things for people directly. They usually like to interact with people on a one-on-one basis. They're not big on groups. They're kind of a I don't say no, they can be kind of a low energy kind of people, right? This is not a person that's very expressive, that's running around, that wants to be going out to places, that's going to host and lead people. They're usually very uninterested in those kinds of things, but are very interested in getting to understand people. And because FI is so strong, they tend to find people that they love. They really love them, are enamored by them. Um, People, whether it's real people in their lives or people that are like celebrities, maybe a TV character, something like that, that they just love it. They can love a show, a character, um, could be a video game character, something like that. And they love them strong. They love it. 30, 40 years will go by. They still love it. They are just like obsessively interested in these kinds of things. Their intuition is very strong, again, because they have FINE together, but they also have NI demonstrative, very strong NI. So they also are very interested in paying attention to the deeper spiritual aspects of life, how people evolve through life, looking for the deeper underlying meaning of things. This is a type that is very unsuperficial. They're really not interested in what people look like physically. They don't care if you're good looking or hot or whatever. They're more interested in the kind of person you are. Who are you? What are you all about? Are you a good person at heart? You mean well. Are you intelligent and deep and reflective? And so these are things they find interesting. Are you a unique individual as well? Kind of an odd character. They love that too. Do you seem authentic? Uh, so because they're so connected to people or characters or even just certain things sometimes that they like, it could be a thing that they're very interested in. Things like they like mushrooms and trees and flowers, and they like going out into the woods and so on, and they're really much enamored with that. They love those things too, and they love these things throughout their whole lives. They probably figured it out very early in life. They're types to be very contemplative on deeper meanings with life, the journey we all go through in life. What is life about? um, what happens to people as they age, when they go through different stages of life, things like that, which is very intuitive type of stuff that they're doing. And this is what they really care about. Now, unfortunately, this comes at a cost, and I'm gonna kind of reverse this from how I usually do it. But as a vulnerable function, okay, they are usually very, very bad at SE. They don't get SE. They don't understand it. They don't. They just they don't have any use for it. Nothing. So what does this mean? This is a type that basically does not, they have no interest in acquiring more things. They don't care about getting new cars, new houses, making more money. They don't care about titles, status, working your way to the top or something. No interest at all. No interest in prestige of your job or your type. They could not care less. They genuinely, they can't. They just can't. They don't see the value in it at all. Um, but because it also means it's a type that has a very, very hard time um, being more energetic, mobilizing themselves to get to physically do things, physically get out, go do stuff, put energy into it. If there's obstacles in your way, if things are hard and you need to overcome them, they have a hard time with that. Um, they're often not interested in things that are hard and where you have to overcome them, where you have to work, you have to sweat, you have to grind. They're usually not interested in those things at all anyway. Um, so it can be a major problem when they encounter situations that require that of you. Um, things like you're in college education and you just like, listen, you got to grind through some of these classes and get that degree, or you need to go into your job, and if you really want to make a difference or do something, you're gonna have to grind and work for it. You're gonna have to push and get good at things and make yourself more useful to people. um, if you have to compete, there's some kind of competitive component to things. They just can't. They just can't. They're a type that also does not respond well to people who pressure them. If you're telling them, listen, you need to do this by such and such a time in such and such a way, you got to make it happen. Figure it out. They don't respond well to deadlines, to that kind of pressure. They want nothing to do with it. Their chances are they'll probably just shut down and walk away and just be like, I'm not doing this. I don't. They just will not be pushed. Um, and it's almost like they can't be. Like even if they wanted to try, they just can't. They just can't do it. Um, so it's a type that's very much in their heads, very passive style. Not only are they just not aggressive people, but again, they won't compete, they won't grind, and they have no interest in being the center of attention. They are almost always going to be that person who's hanging out on the sidelines in the quiet in the corner, just observing everyone else, really getting to know everyone else. This is probably one of the most introverted types possible. Um, yes, there are exceptions where you run into some people that um, go into performance things. Um, so we'll get back to discussing the different functions and where they all go. But in terms of career, there's a type of person, because they're so interested in people and creativity and things like that, and helping people along their way. This is a type that generally loves to try to help people in a more direct way, but help them with some deeper meaning. So they're so good-hearted. This is the person that wants to go work at a vet's office to go help kittens and help little animals along. And they're not going to be the vet necessarily. Most of the time, they won't be. They'll be a volunteer. They'll be a vet tech, a little worker in there. Um, there are other times when you deal with somebody who is um, interested in helping the deaf and the blind and people like that, because they're concerned that these people don't get any proper attention. They're a minority within a minority type of thing. And they're a group of people that are unseen, unheard. People that can't call to get emergency services because nobody can speak sign language. So these people can't be properly tended to. And this is stuff that your EIIs tend to really be concerned with, and they want to go help these people, and they want to go become sign language interpreters or um, do something within that arena. These are people who want to work within hospice and help the elderly, because they know that this is a time in people's lives when they're vulnerable and they're kind of forgotten before they die. So they want to be there for them and hold their hand and try to talk to them and get to know them and let them feel like they're heard. Maybe they'll work in the church helping people with spiritual matters and stuff like that. These are all areas that EIIs really tend to gravitate towards, areas that make no money. There's no competition for it because nobody usually wants to do these things. Nobody's usually thinking about these things. Um, but it's an area that feels like you can help people or animals or somebody in a very meaningful, deep way. That's what they're interested in. Every once in a while, you'll find some that kind of go into the arts, and many of them will really enjoy the arts because it gives them a chance to um, step outside themselves and become a character if they're a performing artist, and they usually enjoy being weird, wacky characters. This is a type that maybe might do some other kind of art, as in like painting and sculpting and things like that, where they get to put their ideas out there. Um, Writing is common, doing a lot of writing where they create a lot of characters. Um, Maybe some epic, some George R. R. Martin type of stuff, things like that, where they create an epic with a lot of characters in it that are well flushed out. It gives them a chance to creatively bring out all these characters from their mind and put them on paper and make a story out of it and so on. So they tend to also go into those areas too. Um, but again, all of these things, while it's very good heart and good natured, it requires a certain practicality. You got to understand, well, the kittens aren't going to save themselves. They need money, right? You need funding for this somehow. You need know-how. How do you take care of these people? How do you take care of these animals? How do you provide? How do you learn? How do you create a system that's efficient that could help the most number of people? What is a useful way to help these people, right? So now we're getting into very pragmatic stuff, TE stuff, the how-to stuff, making things effective and efficient in the real world kind of way. Um, so the EIIs have TE as a not sorry, not vulnerable. They have TE as a suggestive function. This is the fourth function in MBTI. It's down at the bottom, where they're not good at the TE stuff. And some would say that they need a daddy. Take that as you will. But they do need somebody who has the know-how of how to make these things work, how to make these things effective, how to make it happen over the long haul. How do I create funding for this? How do I just get things done in order to get all these things that I want to do um, to happen, right? So they need someone to do that. They really need that kind of help, and they'll respond well to people who have strong TE, strong sensory skills as well that can help them out. Um, it's a type that is SI mobilizing. So it is a type that wants to get better, wants a little help at taking care of themselves, creating the right atmosphere, the right home life, getting organized and sleep and food and all this kind of stuff. Those day-to-day kind of things. Um, they do value it a lot. So they like nice, peaceful, tranquil environments where everything's kind of taken care of, your needs are taken care of. They value that stuff a lot, and they try to do it for themselves, and many of them can be decent at it at some point. Um, Usually does not come easily at first. It takes a little time for them to get better at it. Um, so they can be very, very messy, very cluttered, very not good at just taking care of themselves, needing a little kick in the butt every once in a while to like organize their day to day and keep track of day to day tasks and things that need getting done. Um, yeah, staying on top of making phone calls, paying bills, things like that. Um, since they are an FI dominant type, that means they're FE ignoring. And that's really, once again, where they're just not really a type that's interested in doing all the social things, going out to places, being the center of attention within a room, being very expressive and emotive with people. And they're usually not interested in doing the conventional things that people do, dressing the way people dress. going to the kind of events and things that people do. They're not as concerned about creating an image that they want society to see them by. They are all FI. So they want to be authentic to themselves. This is how I feel. This is who I am. This is what is true and right for me and what I care about. And that's what I want to present to the audience, to the room, to the people. And I'm just going to be me. Whatever that might look like to others, so be it. They're not interested in that. They're not interested in trying to affect other people's emotions. They're not interested in trying to convince people of other things. This is a type that is totally fine loving and believing in what they believe and has no interest in trying to convince other people to believe in what they believe and get on board with their cause. No, they're perfectly fine doing it on their own. Um, well, I know we covered pretty much most of it. Their TI is usually uh, is also pretty weak, just like all their thinking. Their TE was their suggestive. So they also have TI in a role position where they try to sort of come up with a system of how things should be, being consistent on how to do things, um, coming up with some sort of really consistency to life, to going about doing stuff and how things are supposed to make sense and work. They'll do that when needed to by society or by their job or whatever. It's a role, but they're not good at it, is the point, right? And usually they don't even have to do it very often. Trying to do things in the same way, in the same order. They tend to want to gravitate towards jobs that don't have anything to do with this anyhow, where they can just operate on their own. Um, as I said, they're trying to take care of kittens and they're trying to do this and that. And a lot of those career fields, like having a consistent way to do things and having any sort of rules and structure and how to do it is usually not that important anyway. Um, so they tend to not do that. Um, so overall, I mean, this is a type that is potentially one of the most caring, most noble, trying to see the good in everyone, trying to see the good in things all the time. Um, but this comes at the cost of being extremely unproductive. I'd say they're a type that's has a very hard time getting out there, getting things done, overcoming obstacles and hardships, knowing how to do it in the most effective and efficient way. So they often need help in those areas. They need help. If you want to help the um, starving children in Africa somewhere, you have some noble thing like that. That's great intentions, but you need now people who know how to actually do it, how to practically implement what you want to do. Take your idea and your initiative and make it a reality. Um, that's where they really struggle with, and they can really benefit from people who are good at that and people who can know how to make money, how to be productive, get a lot of things done, because then those people can get all that kind of hard work, all those things done for the EII. There are some types of people that often come across like this. You have some actors. Uh, Johnny Depp is one who tends to get seen as an EII a lot, and you can see how he's a guy who is very mild, very calm. You see him even in courtrooms. He's very, very mild, just doesn't not very expressive at all. Very, very different from the wacky kind of characters he plays in his movies and stuff. You see some real world people like Princess Diana was often seen as this type. Somebody who wanted to end landmines around the world because of all the damage it would do to people, and especially children who would accidentally step on landmines and so on. And she had other initiatives like that, which is a very nice sentiment, beautiful idea to help people, but it requires know-how. It requires money. It requires military experts and different people to get involved on how are we going to go about doing that. Um, so anyway, yeah, those are kind of some examples, and it's a type you don't see very often because they are a very kind of introverted, quietly going about their business, quietly trying to do stuff. So they're just not one of those loud personalities that just throws themselves out there for people to see. They're kind of an unseen type that's tending to minorities and unseen people. So they're kind of a little tricky to find because of that. This is also a type that doesn't date around much. I've heard it now from several that they're the type of people that just seem very uninterested in romantic dating life. Um, Occasionally, they finally come across somebody that catches their attention, and once they really like that person, they really like that person. I mean, they're locked in for life almost. Um, it can be very hard for them to get out of a relationship if it's not working or if it's not good for them. It's very hard for them to pull out because of that high fi. And for those who maybe have to, a lot of them would say that if they have to pull out of the relationship, they feel like they probably would never date again. Like, not because they're heartbroken, but because they just feel very uninterested at getting involved with people like that. Um, it's like it's just very difficult for them to see themselves being attached to somebody enough, strong enough to want to get into those relationships. So these are types that rarely uh, date much, get involved much. Could be a type that gets married to somebody very pretty early in life, and then they're just married forever. Um, so yeah, let me see what else. What can we else we talk about this type? Yeah, that about sums them up. They're usually meant to be paired up in socionics with the LSEs, which is the ESTJs, Delta Quadra Socionics. Um, they do well with LIEs, which is the ENTJs. And the reasoning is that both types, LIEs and LSEs, both lead with extroverted thinking, pragmatism. These are usually types that are very good at getting things done, um, and being able to perhaps provide or know how to accomplish tasks. So it's usually their more ideal types. Really, I would say that just about any type that is just good at getting things done, that's good at the ST stuff, is probably going to be helpful to the EIIs. But they would have to be types that are very patient to kind of understand the EIIs, understand the kind of lack of productivity from EIIs. Um, and a type that's probably very reflecting, whatever, they reflect well. So probably one of the deeper types, and by that's probably an N type. Is probably going to get along best with them. So anyhow, yeah, I think that's a lot. So let me know what you think of that, if that makes sense, if that you relate to that. Um, Anything else that kind of got left out, or other things you'd want to dive deeper. As always, like and subscribe and let me know what you think.